Hey guys, I had my wisdom teeth out the other day, so if I'm talking a bit funny, that's why. So I realised yesterday I haven't looked at porn in probably, well, it's been, I think, quite a bit over 2 months actually. And I haven't even really been thinking about it. A couple of times I have, a couple of times I thought, oh, maybe I could or whatever, but not really. Hasn't really been difficult even to avoid at this point. And I think I think the main reason for that is because I've come to understand the nature of my usage of it, and whilst I think it's like a layered thing and it's like a multifaceted thing, I do feel that there was one primary reason I was doing it. So basically, I stopped watching it in January when my dog was diagnosed with cancer. It was a very serious event, obviously, because we really loved our dog, and instantly I just felt like life needed to change. So we started meditating every day, and I thought I just don't want to look at porn. I want to be with my family, with my girlfriend and our dog, and I don't want that nasty outside energy in our life, and I want to commit to this relationship and this situation and not be doing things that are not appropriate to do from within a relationship and stuff like that. And porn is like a slippery slope in that way as well, because it can put you in I think a lot of, for example, a lot of why people cheat and stuff and do bad things in relationships is because of porn. I think it fucks people's brains up. I know it fucked me up big time. And I know it's an easy thing to say, oh, porn fucked me up. It sort of takes all the culpability away from me, from my choices over the years. And no, I'm still culpable. I chose to let it do that to me. And whilst when I was a kid, I don't feel it was my fault. I feel like I should have been protected from that. But as I grew older, I did, ultimately that was my choice, to allow that negative influence into my life so consistently. Anyway, the dog got ill, and it just seemed weird to be looking at porn. So I didn't want to. And the good thing I would say about her getting ill and her death even, is that it brought me and my girlfriend a lot closer together. And while the dog was still here when she had cancer, it brought the three of us a lot closer together. And I remember thinking at the time, I feel so different. Ever since she got diagnosed, I was really sad when we were with her and we knew she had cancer, because it was such an advanced cancer. So we were really sad. But I remember thinking, I'm so grateful that she's here right now. I'm so grateful to spend time with her. And we just felt so close as a family. And so I think having that closeness, it just made it seem weird to start looking at porn secretly in my own room. Which is what I was doing often. And it wasn't to be honest, it wasn't a replacement for a sex life when I was looking at it a lot. It was kind of supplementary, to be honest. And to be honest, if anything, it kind of made me hornier a lot, because I think it was just constantly stimulating that part of my mind. So we were probably having sex more when I was looking at porn a lot, because I was just constantly in that porn mindset. Well, there's a lot of problems with that in itself, which I guess I'll get into. But anyway, I stopped and I got some distance from it, and I wouldn't say even, I think before in the past I would decide. I even did a video here where it was called I'm done with porn, and it was I decided I'm not gonna do it, and it was this big moment of making a decision. But if you just make a big decision and it's not followed by action, then it's meaningless. So in this case, it was more a decision followed by actions, and it was a sincere decision. It wasn't a reactionary thing. It was I actually don't want to do this anymore. And So that's given me some distance, and because I've kind of had a couple of times, I've had like the vague impulses, almost like muscle memory at certain moments and at certain times. I've sort of gone like, oh, I could just look at porn right now, and it hasn't been difficult. Again, like as I said, I haven't really actually wanted to that much. There have been a couple of times where I thought, like yeah, would quite like to, but literally like a couple of times, which is pretty unusual for me. This is the longest I'm fairly certain this is the longest I've ever gone without looking at porn. I'm almost certain. I don't think I've even gone a month without looking at it before. Maybe I have, but I don't think so. I don't remember, but it feels like the longest I've gone, and it feels like the most it's been out of my life since I was literally a kid. And so I was able to look at it from a distance, like from an outside perspective, and I'd seen a lot of stuff online before, like a lot of the people in the sort of self-development world and sort of the sort of content creators who make content aimed at men and self-improvement and stuff, or some of the religious people online. They would talk about how porn is a form of emotional regulation, and I thought like, yeah, it's not as simple as that. And I thought like, sometimes I'm just horny and like, I just like porn. I don't really like it, but you know what I mean. I just that part of me, like, just I would just think like, I just want to look at it basically. And I knew, yeah, like sometimes it was because it made me feel good, and I might have otherwise felt bad. And the happier you are, the less likely you are to do stuff like that, and the more unhappy you are, the more likely you are to do it. But I never fully understood the extent to which it serves as a form of emotional regulation, or was serving as a form of emotional regulation for me. And what does that mean? Well, like weed, for example, right? If you smoke weed a lot, it's the same thing. It's a form of emotional regulation. It's a way of controlling yourself or your emotions, or feeling like you're controlling yourself or your emotions in a way that is like difficult to do through other means. Whereas weed is very accessible. You just buy it and smoke it. And so you might feel like shit and you go, right, I'm going to smoke some weed. It doesn't necessarily even make you feel better. Certainly in the long term, like a lot of these habits, they don't make you feel better, but they give you the feeling of doing something, and they can often pertain to solve some kind of emotional problem you're having, either in the short term or otherwise. And so it might be, for example, if you have a really shit job and you hate your job and you come home, and every time you come home you smoke weed, and it's a way of being like, the work day is finished, I'm okay, I'm at home, I'm smoking, I'm better now, I'm away from that situation, and I'm like calm or relaxed. And that might not even be true. It might be true, obviously. I'm not, I think weed is like, some people it's fine, but for a lot of people it's not. But that's the kind of idea, like you have this feeling, and maybe sometimes it's better to regulate that emotion through more substantive means. Like, okay, if I hate my job this much, maybe I need to deal with that. Maybe I need to either find a way where I don't hate my job, or I need to find a new job, instead of just using something to kind of make me feel like I'm fixing that emotion in the short term. And sometimes you don't know that's what you're doing or why you're doing it, but it's very often the case with addictions or habits or tendencies. Like even smartphone use, there's usually an emotion that precedes it. That emotion might be boredom. I don't know if boredom really counts as an emotion. I guess it does, but a feeling or a state that precedes the moment of usage. And yeah, usually that's like boredom or anxiety, I think. And ironically, smartphone use causes boredom and anxiety in the long term, but in the short term, it feels like it's often relieving boredom or anxiety. You feel like stress, and you think, oh, fuck, let me anything good on my phone. Or you feel bored, you're like, oh, what's going on here? Let me check my notifications, let me look at these apps. And then it leads actually to a lifestyle where you're constantly bored and anxious. But anyway, and there's a similarly cyclical nature with porn, I think, and the various different ailments or ills or negative feelings it appears to be able to sometimes soothe. So anyway, yeah. So I started to realise, I think the main thing for me, I think when I was younger, there was all sorts of different shit. I don't fucking remember, to be honest. I remember when I was like 15, I was just obsessed with it. And like, I think that's, obviously if you're like a horny teenager and you have access suddenly to this shit and you don't really have anything going on in your life, like, there's probably many reasons why you're doing it. And more importantly, there's not as many reasons not to do it, because you don't really know what it's doing to you, and you don't really have any boundaries in your life, and you don't really care about how you spend your time and shit. So that's a different story. But as I was getting older, I was like, man, why do I find this so difficult? Why do I keep doing this? And what's going on here? And I just thought, I guess I'm just addicted. I'm just a horny person, and also I'm just addicted to porn, basically, because I've looked at it for so long and I can't get it out of my brain. Then I started to realise that most of the time, well, when I'm working, right, and when I'm trying to achieve different things, like I've spent a lot of my life trying to succeed in music, and I've spent a lot of my life trying to succeed at other things, writing books and doing various different projects and podcasts, or these videos, for example. And to be fair, these videos, they kind of fall outside of that. I'm not really trying to achieve a specific thing here, and I don't really have a lot of pressure or stress surrounding these videos. It's kind of the opposite. I quite like doing them, and I don't really care that much about the outcome. But other stuff I've tried to do, businesses or creative projects or whatever, I've tended to fail. If we're being like objective and we're talking about material or external, measures of success, like I've tended to fail. I've not really made any money from anything in my life. I just about get by. I'm quite poor, and the older I've gotten, the more it's led to feelings of shame and low self-esteem, particularly about being poor, about not being able to afford anything. And like, my girlfriend earns a lot more than me, and more than that, because that's more recent, but before then, it was just the feelings of failure. And some of that was a feeling like I had failed, and some of that was a feeling like I had been set up to fail, in things I tried to do in music and stuff like that. And I still feel to some degree, I feel the quality of my work in music merited a lot more success than I had, and a lot more opportunities than I had. And some things that happened were extremely unfair, and I still feel to some degree kind of aggrieved or hard done by. But I also feel like I didn't do enough, and I didn't work hard enough, and I failed, and I couldn't solve the problems I had. I couldn't do what I needed to do. I couldn't prove myself, or sometimes prove wrong the people I wanted to prove wrong, or I couldn't achieve what I felt was kind of owed to me to achieve, and perhaps that way of thinking in itself is part of the problem. But it was something that began to feel. Hang on, this is annoying noise happening. Sorry, this really annoying noise that comes from the pipes, and the landlord won't turn it off, so we sometimes have to turn off the other toilet. Fucking hell. There's crazy shit going on with my neck. Anyway, yeah. So I felt a lot of disappointment and failure and grief. I think grief would be the word. I felt a lot of grief over that in particular. And then the more I tried to do other stuff, I thought, okay, this isn't working, I'll try and do other stuff. And I just felt like I couldn't succeed at anything. And some days, as a man, you need a sense of purpose and direction, and you just kind of you need to know what you're doing every day, and that you're doing something meaningful every day, I think. And it's quite hard if you don't have that. You just feel, there are some days I'll be like, what am I fucking doing here, man? Like I'm working on some album or something, and I'm fucking no one's gonna listen to this, and I'm working so hard, and lately I'm not, to be honest, on stuff like that, because I just can't, or I haven't been able to bring myself to, and I've just felt so demotivated, and a lot of these feelings started to develop, where I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, because I'd be unless I had work, because I have a day job, I'd make just about enough money from to survive.
But unless I had something specific I had to do at a certain time for that, I just didn't want to get up. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to. I did get up. I did get out of bed. That's too strong what I'm saying there. It's not that I didn't. Some days I was fine. Some days I felt good. But there were times I felt like, it should be like, right, let's fucking go. Like, let's do some shit. Let's fucking get after it or whatever. But I would just feel a lot like I don't fucking know if if I've achieved anything today. I'm doing so much shit and so much of it is useless and like not going anywhere and wasted energy, and I'm not making any money, and people feel sorry for me or look down on me or think I'm a loser, and I can't look after myself, and all of this, and I've wasted time and blah blah blah, and you start to feel quite bad. Like, it's quite a bad feeling. And just not knowing what to do, feeling really lost. Like, what should I even be doing right now? Should I be trying to do these very ambitious things that I believe I'm like meant to do, and that I feel if I persevere with, maybe something will happen? Or should I be finding some sort of like horribly depressing backup option that I can't really stomach, that's just going to like be soul destroying? What should I do? And then I started to lose all confidence in whatever I was doing. So I'd be working on something and I'd just be like, this is shit. And sometimes it wasn't. Like, I came to realize, like, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes I'd be doing stuff that was like really good. Like, I was working on a song recently for my new album, and I was like, man, I just like can't get this right and it doesn't sound good. And I posted it anonymously to Reddit, on a mixing subreddit, and was like, can anyone tell me like what I can do with this mix or whatever? And almost everyone that replied, there were like 10 or 11 people that replied that were like, what is this song, man? Like, this is amazing. People were like, what do you even call this? Like, what genre is this? This is so good. This is like the most creative shit ever, and like you're really talented and stuff. And I was like, whoa. And first of all, I thought, why is that happening now when I'm posting anonymously? But secondly, I thought, and I'm digressing a bit, sorry, I'll get back to the point, but I sort of thought, well, when I've become like very insecure, I guess, because if I'm making something on my own and on it, I'm just like, oh, this is shit and no one cares and whatever. And then I posted that and everyone was like, this is amazing. And suddenly I felt, oh yeah, I need to finish this and I need to do this and this is good and I should work on this. And like, I so badly needed it, to be honest. I so badly needed like that kind of reassurance, and because I felt my confidence was so low, and I realized then that your confidence can really warp how you see things. It can really warp your perspective, and because if you receive a lot of rejection or you don't get the results you want, it's very easy to feel like you're shit or what you're doing is shit or you failed. And it really, really, really distorts your perception. Like, for example, I have songs where like I would like post them and no one would care, no one would respond, and I'd be like, oh, I guess it's shit or whatever. Not always. There's times I have had a strong undercurrent of like self-belief throughout a lot of it, but there are times, yeah, I would do something and I'd be like, oh, this is just shit. Like, no one cares and it's shit. And then like a year later or something, someone would be like, this is so good, and they would describe why it was so good in a way that I kind of, it was what I felt was good about it originally. And suddenly I'd be like, yeah, this song's fucking amazing, I'd be like, I love it. And then when I'd listen to it, I'd be like, oh, this is great. And it's weird because I'm normally like, I'm quite an independently minded person, but I started to see, yeah, like, especially when your confidence is low, you can get so messed up in how you see yourself and how you see other people and things. And then, like, I don't believe it's good to depend on external validation. I don't at all. But I think you can get to a state where, like, it's quite hard to not start to question yourself, and where external validation can start to mean more than perhaps it ideally would, or more than it should. So anyway, that was kind of the state I was in. I'm working on stuff on my own, no team, no collaboration, no one telling me I was doing a good job, no mentors, no help, no clue if I was going the right way, no family to really, talk to about anything, and just like thinking, okay, well, I've got another few months to a year of doing this, and then I've got to fucking get serious and like start making some money, and like preparing to have a family. I can't be fucking around and doing shit that's not going anywhere. So anyway, say I would have a day where like I was working on loads of shit and I was thinking, I don't fucking know if this is what I'm doing, if this is going anywhere. That was the main thing, is like, because there were times when I really believed in what I was doing personally, but I thought I just couldn't believe it would ever go anywhere because I've been burned so many times, you know. It's like someone who's been like cheated on over and over and over and over again. No matter how kind their partner is, no matter how trustworthy they seem, no matter how much they show them, how many gestures they make, there's always that part of them is like, I'm just going to fucking get cheated on again because that's what's always happened, you know. And that's kind of how I started to feel. So it was very hard to feel good about what I was doing or get any joy from it, because there was always that feeling in the back of my mind, I'm like pissing my time away. And so because I couldn't get that dopamine from doing what I was doing, I couldn't get that joy, that satisfaction from doing what I was doing, porn became like a way of getting it. So often I'd be like having a depressing day thinking, oh, what am I fucking doing, drifting from one activity to the next, doing a bit of my day job, doing some other shit, doing this, and then be like, I could just look at porn, you know, like, and just sort of pretend in my mind I'm like, you know, engaged in some like fucking salacious scenario, and feel some sort of meaningless short-lived pleasure or whatever, but at least like, and then I can tell myself, oh, it'll probably relax me, I'm stressed, this will probably like help me like chill out, you know. And then I'd convince myself weird shit like, oh, later on I'll be better at what I'm doing, I'll be more relaxed and stuff. And also I think there was a weird self-esteem component, because like I started to realize, like I started to feel, I think sometimes how like horny you are, it's not always about how you see the other person, it's often about how you see yourself. So if you start to feel a bit like bad about yourself, I think you start to feel a bit less like like I used to, I don't know, I've had like a bit more like pride in a sense, and I started to feel like more and more like I just wear like tracksuit bottoms and like not shower as much and not feel super like up for having sex sometimes, because I'll just be like, I'm just like, I probably fucking stink, or I'm just like, whatever, I'm a bit of a mess right now. And I kind of started to sink into that a little bit, you know, into being like kind of I think then in that case, like porn becomes in the short term a way you sort of remove yourself from that. You're like, I can still be horny and I can still engage in these scenarios that are completely fictional. And it doesn't matter if I'm like a failure, or if I'm like not clean at the moment, or if I'm dressed like a tramp, or I'm wearing my pajamas, or I've not like done anything today or whatever. None of that matters. It doesn't matter if I feel like low energetically and I don't really have the energy to do much. I can still just do this. It's so easy to do, and there's not really an entry requirement, you know. And yeah, ironically that becomes a cycle, because you then start to feel worse about yourself, you feel more exhausted, you get less done, you start to feel a sense of shame, you feel a bit disgusting. You're also seeing people in these videos who are like, you know, generally like sort of more attractive than you. And for me also, the more I start looking at porn, the more it would get into stuff that's quite like sort of degrading for my self-esteem, I guess, and a mindset, like the way I looked at it, and it was like quite say I hadn't looked for like a while, like a week, then I'd start again, and it used to be just like, you know, oh, she's hot, I like to fuck her, blah blah blah. And then it would just, then my brain would start to go more and more, like the next time I'd be like, but why would she fuck me, like she probably wouldn't want to. And then I'd be like, what does that mean then? And what does that say about me? And then I was like, so what am I then? And what am I in this scenario? And then more and more it would be like I started to kind of compulsively sort of degrade myself, you know? And not always, but sometimes, and it just puts you in a weird position mentally, I think, and it would lead to more of that, because I'd be like, I'm just a fucking tramp, look at me, you know, I've done fuck all today, looked at a bunch of porn, like what's wrong with me, I'm a bum. And then it leads to more feelings of, you know, negative feelings about yourself. The that leads to more porn. So, yeah, like, when you stop, it's not that that gets better, right? It's not like suddenly those problems go away, not at all. But you actually look at them and deal with them and experience them, and you might not be able to solve them. You might not be able to solve these problems, but you're acknowledging that they exist. You're not like running from them all the time, and that's the beginning. That's the first step and the most important step. And after that, you may or may not solve them. You may or may not, reach your full potential. You may or may not have the amazing life you've always wanted to have. But the first step is that, like, and if you don't do that, then you're definitely not. You're definitely not going to have any of those things. So, like, I think that's the main difference. Is like now, for example, if I feel, I haven't had and by the way, I've been so much more productive. It's crazy. Like, I've been so much more fucking productive without porn. It's absolutely crazy. But also now, if like I feel like I've had a bad day, I have to be like, why? Like, why then? And what can I do? I can't just say, okay, I've had a bad day. Now I'm going to like toss off for 4 hours. No, I never did it for 4 hours. It's crazy. That's if you're on like meth or speed or something. But I have to like say like, yeah, okay, what was wrong, and what was the problem, and what is my problem, and where am I going, and how can I try to resolve this? And often it's a very painful process. It's not nice. It doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. It's necessary to go through that pain. It's like the difference between like going to the gym and working out and being, you're fat and you go to the gym and you're like, I've got to lose weight, I've got to build muscle, I feel like shit, I hate training, I'm tired, my body hurts. Or popping on one of those like muscle suits, and you pop on the muscle suit, you're like, okay, I look big, and you know that you're not, and you're like, this is bullshit. But you're like, but I don't have to look at my fat body underneath it, and underneath you're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and you're like, I'm solving the problem because I can't see it. And that is mostly what was happening. It was a way of avoiding my problems, not looking at them. And that's not the same as solving them. And so again, solving them, it's not always simple. It's not always easy, but it's not always even possible, actually. But it's you certainly can't do it if you're running from them or hiding from them or not looking at them. So that's been how it's been going with that. I mean, in terms of like, and another thing in that regard is like, okay, like, if then we're in our relationship, me and my girlfriend, if we're not like, I mean, to be honest, for our age, and I think how long we've been together, we have a pretty good sex life generally, but like, if there's times when it's just like, I don't really want to, whatever, or we're not maybe having sex as much as we might like to, or whatever, then at least I can only speak for my part, but I have to be like, why? Like, why do I not want to? And sometimes for me, some of that, to be honest, is, again, I think the porn, I think the decades almost, pretty much decades, like 2 decades of like looking at porn, have conditioned me to view sex in a certain way. And I think sometimes normal, nice, like, wholesome sex in a relationship is like not really how my brain has come to be wired over the years. And that's something I've had to think about. I've had to be like, oh yeah, so that doesn't really appeal to me, because I lost my virginity to a prostitute, and like I had sex with prostitutes a lot before I had sex in a relationship, and I also looked at porn a lot. And so I like, instead of just going, oh well, I can sort of just like look at lots of porn and then I'll be like horny all the time because I'll have conditioned myself to be really horny and think pornographically, and then we can have sex all the time. Instead, I have to be like, why am I maybe not as horny as I might otherwise be? And like, I've thought about that a lot. I've been like, I should probably want to have sex right now, but like, I don't really want to. And why? And again, it's not always an easy answer or an easy solution, but I'm actually trying. I'm actually, trying to do so instead of, and I'm thinking about it instead of just avoiding it or ignoring it or like covering it up, And so I think from that point of view, it's very useful as well. I have a lot more energy. There's a lot less wasted time. There are no downsides. Feel good. I'm not under the illusion that this is like complete, or I've like fixed it, or I've solved the problem, or I'm never going to do this again. I don't think thinking like that is helpful, and it's also like I can't fucking say. I don't know what I'll be like in a month. I have to keep making the right steps and making the right choices and doing the right things. And doing that every day. If I stop doing that, then I'll fall back into bad habits again. If I stop like thinking the right way, and like meditating has been really useful, by the way. I think like we've been meditating every day. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but like that's been really useful in a lot of ways. And I feel it's weird, man. I feel like, happiness is a weird word. People say like I'm happy or I'm unhappy. It's kind of a weird word because you associate it with like joy and pleasure. And it's not like I would say like I'm really happy at the moment. I just feel like mentally healthy at the moment. And part of that is actually I'm feeling my problems a lot more. I'm realizing, okay, there are certain like family relationships that are really bad. And I have a lot of social lack, just a huge lack socially, really, of anything. And financial problems and like personal problems and stuff, and I'm very aware of them at the moment. I'm very aware of my emotions, like, and things like trauma and other difficult feelings I go through. I'm a lot more aware of them, so it's not like it's a happy time in that sense. I can't say like, oh, I'm really happy right now, because that implies everything's like fun and joyful. But it's better. Like, it's better to actually go through these things and deal with them, and it feels like a relief in a way. It's almost like the feeling of like, and there's like a criminal who's on the run. I've seen it in a couple of like crime documentaries, like bank robbers and stuff. And when they get caught, they're like, yeah, it was a relief. Like, it was a relief when I finally got caught, because the escape, when they're running away, when they're on the run, it's like a lie. They're living a lie. And then when they get caught, yeah, they have to go to prison. They have to face the consequences of their actions. But it's a relief. It's like, that's what it should be. They should be in prison, and they have to face the consequences. They can't run forever. And when you have the illusion like, oh, I can just run forever, you're tempted to try and do so. And when you stop doing it, like, I don't know, man. It's a relief to live in reality, because it's there anyway. These problems are there. They don't go away when you hide from them or when you try to avoid them. They're there. So, yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel now. Anything else? No, that's it really. Can't remember if there's anything else related to this I wanted to say. No. Yeah, man. I mean, for me, as I say, it took because I quit a few times before, like a lot of times before, and I've been really serious about doing so. But it did kind of take. I think part of it was, as I say, when the dog got ill, I just started to rethink like everything. I'm, if you watch my channel, I'm constantly thinking about stuff and changing things and doing things. It's not like I'm like, I just let life pass me by normally or anything. I feel like I'm quite actively involved in my own internal world and life and everything. But even then, I was still ignoring a lot of shit, and it just was like, it brought everything into clarity, because I realized like how much I loved and still do love this dog. And what was really important, because it was like, right, the three of us, like, to be honest, it's kind of all we've got. And like, this is what's important, is the three of us are together now, and that we love each other, and that we like, this is what's meaningful. And I started to think more about like the things that aren't meaningful, the people and things and relationships that are like a waste of time or not good. And all of that kind of shit. And just started to think, I don't want to live my life in a flippant or trivial way. And I don't know, man. And for me, it took that. And I don't know if I could have gotten there another way. I could have approached it from another angle and gotten to the same place, but that was how it came about for me, was her getting ill. I don't think it has to be that way. You don't have to have a dog that gets cancer to come to those conclusions, and maybe you don't have to come to them all at once so suddenly. But I do think, like, I just started to. It just brought into perspective what was real and what was important. I think things like meditation, or even if you're that way inclined and experienced with them and get on well with them, things like mushrooms can be a really good way of doing that. Of, like, recalibrating and going, no, this is bullshit and this is good and this is worth my time and this isn't. So yeah, that's all. All right, guys, I'm gonna do a probably, like, when my thing is a bit better, I'll do a travel video about Bruges, a trip to Bruges. It was pretty funny. It's quite funny stuff happened there, and yeah. All right, guys, take care.